Hello, and welcome to my channel, Reading Little Blue Books Out Loud. This is a Little Blue book. It happens to be Little Blue book number 417, and it is titled The Nature of Dreams. And it was written by Hereward Carrington Ph.D. And this will be part 5. So, pardon me while I itch my nose. We left off at the top of page 48 and a new chapter, Prophetic Dreams. Just as telepathic impressions from distant minds may affect the mind of the sleeper and cause telepathic dreams, so may the future be seen, apparently, in certain prophetic dreams. The following are sample cases of this character. The first is reported by M. Camilla Flammarion, the eminent French astronomer. I probably butchered that name. Anyhow, and I quote, "I dreamed that I was on my vacation at the place where I usually go. But the room which was given to me was different from my own, and behind a clothes press I saw spreading flames. 6 months later I reached my destination. I was led into a very small summer house. Although I had never seen it before, I recognized this little corner which was meant for me. The clothes press in the same spot recalled the fire. I spoke of it, and they reassured me. For 10 years no fire had harmed the neighborhood. I had begun to loose my fear when, toward the 4th week, the Toscan sounded. An immense fire consumed a farm not far from my dwelling, and even licked the wall where the clothes press stood." The following case is recorded by Princess Emma Carolith of Wiesbaden. "I had just fallen asleep, very anxious over the health of someone I loved, when I found myself carried in a dream to an unknown castle, into an octagonal cabinet hung in red damask. There was a bed in which lay sleeping the person whose health disturbed me. A lamp hanging from the arch of the canopy flooded with light the pale but smiling face, framed in thick masses of black hair. At the bed's head was a picture, the subject of which was so strongly engraved on my memory that on my awakening I would have drawn it. It was Christ, crowned with roses by a heavenly spirit, with verses by Schiller, which I read. 2 years later we went for a country visit to a castle in the depths of Hungary. I stopped trembling when I entered the apartment which had been set aside for us. I was in the octagonal cabinet, hung in red damask, before the bed and before the picture of Christ crowned with roses, with the verses of Schiller. This picture had never been copied or reproduced, and it was impossible that I should have seen it otherwise than in the dream. Any more, for that matter, than I could have been in the octagonal cabinet. In such cases, when the coincidence is so striking and detailed, it is absurd to talk of chance. No? The future is sometimes revealed to us in dream or vision. We see what is about to happen. How can the future ever be revealed? This is a question which must be answered in another place. Next chapter, Experimentally Induced Dreams. Dreams seem such vaporous things, so uncontrolled, so spontaneous, that it would appear at first sight impossible to control or induce them, either in oneself or in another. Nevertheless, this can be done, and has been done on various occasions. I shall leave for the present the question as to how to control your own dreams, and shall mention here certain cases in which the dreams of another sleeping person have, apparently, been induced at will. These experiments were originally undertaken by Professor G.B. Amacora of Padua, Italy, and have since been reproduced with varying success by others. His original researches have reported in volumes 11 of the Proceedings of the Society for Psychical Research. Professor Marcora had been experimenting with Miss Maria Manzini, who had the power of automatic writing. Her little cousin, Angelina, aged 4 years 3 months, came to live with her, and the child was destined to play an important part in these experiments. Dr. Ermacora endeavored on a number of occasions to impress a certain dream upon little Angelina, sometimes alone, sometimes with the mental cooperation of Miss Manzini. Their object was to impress a scene or a series of pictures upon the child's sleeping consciousness, so that she would dream of these scenes and recount them in the morning. This was to be done by means of telepathy, for thought transference can operate even more effectively during sleep than during waking hours. Thus, on one occasion, Dr. Ermacora placed Miss Manzini in an somnambulistic trance, suggested to her that she, in trance, could influence little Angelina to dream of Venice, of gondolas, etc. The next morning the child spontaneously stated that she had dreamed of Venice, and accurately described the various scenes which had been suggested to her. As usual, she stated that she was in company, in her dream, with a mysterious blue child, who often accompanied her upon her dream travels. This blue child, curiously enough, corresponds to a childlike personality which manifested itself through Miss Manzini when in trance. Thus the appearances are that this blue child, Elvira, left Miss Manzini and journeyed to Angelina, appearing to her and impressing upon her the dream images. Thus, on one occasion, Elvira was told to impress upon the child a picture of herself in company with Miss Manzini's mother, who would present Angelina with a large cake, which she would open. A little bird would then fly out, laughing. The next morning Angelina said that the blue child, Elvira, had come to her in company with Miss Manzini's mother, and had brought her a cake. When she cut open the cake, something like a pigeon, only smaller, flew out, which was an obvious description of a small bird. Such experiments are Such experiments as these seem to demonstrate beyond all question or doubt the ability to impress other sleeping minds by thought transference, and to induce dreams therein experimentally. This is a fascinating line of investigation, which can be followed by any interested reader. It is my hope that some readers may be induced to try such experiments for themselves and report their results. Next chapter. How to Dream True. Those of you who have read Du Maurer's Peter Ibbotson, or have seen it played on stage or screen, will remember that the central theme of the book was based upon the idea of dreaming true. That is to say, of being enabled to leave the body during sleep and to travel to distant places and visit and converse with other dreaming people who have similarly learned to leave their bodies during sleep, while retaining at the same time the full control of their conscious thinking faculties. Such individuals are usually enabled to remember all that has transpired during the sleeping hours and to recall it the next day. Du Maurer, in his book, gives the formula for dreaming true. It is to lie flat on your back, cross the feet, and clasp the hands beneath the head. This sounds simple, and in fact is actually too simple to work in practical life. There is, however, a formula which may be given for dreaming true, and believing that it will interest my readers, I give it herewith. First of all, you must begin to observe the process of going to sleep. Observe your own consciousness while it is in process of passing into the dream state. If you conduct experiments of this character upon yourself, you will be enabled gradually to keep conscious control of yourself up to the very last moment you fall asleep. This process of self-observation, the consciousness of going to sleep, is extremely interesting. When you have learned to do that, then construct before yourself mentally a definite scene, which you must hold firmly in mind. Then, as you are falling to sleep, holding this scene before you at the very last moment before you fall to sleep, consciously transfer yourself into the scene. In other words, step into that picture. And if you have developed yourself to the requisite point, you will be enabled to carry over an unbroken consciousness into the dream picture. And in that way, you have a perfect continuity of thought. There is no break in consciousness. You step into the dream picture and go on dreaming consciously. That is the process of dreaming true. And after this dream is fully enacted, then you should remember perfectly all that has transpired during the sleep period. This is said to be an excellent method of learning to dream true. By learning to control his dreams in this manner, a well-known Dutch scientist, Dr. Friedrich von Eden, succeeded in mastering the process to the extent that he could consciously control his dream body, see with its eyes, touch with its hands, etc., and turn around and see his own physical body lying asleep upon the bed. He even saw things which were happening at the Turning these pages can sometimes be very difficult. There we go. At the time, in which actually did happen at the time when he was asleep. This, of course, touches upon the question of the projection of the astral body, which we shall take up next. And the next chapter is the dream body. In your dreams, you seem to inhabit a body of your own, as solid and substantial for the time being as your ordinary physical body. At times, however, this dream body varies in density, size, and general characteristics. It may appear thin, vaporous, and tenuous, or it may be so dense that you can pinch it, and thus assure yourself, apparently, that it is real. Again, it may take on the form of your own childish self. You may dream that you are back again at school, or a boy or a girl once more. At such times you see yourself in a childish dream body, which also appears real to you for the time being. Now, how are we to account for such oddities, for such behavior on the part of a vehicle we seem to inhabit during sleep? Or what is this dream body composed? Of what is this dream body composed? Is it a real, semi-physical thing, or is it merely a mental picture? Do you really see a picture of yourself, or a sort of hallucination? Doubtless, in the majority of cases, we merely see ourselves as we see anything else, and yet there is this difficulty in accepting such a simple view of the case altogether. If we see ourselves walking about our old school, for instance, we somehow feel apart from the childish figure which is thus sightseeing. Who is this onlooker who observes, and who is the form walking about? There seems to be a curious doubling of the self here, which is not easily accounted for on ordinary theories. Some people seem to see themselves very clearly in dreams, and some only feel themselves, without ever knowing what they look like. When the self is seen, here is another curious thing, for we have only a vague idea of what we really look like as a matter of fact. We never really see ourselves as we really look to others, unless we happen to look into the angle of two mirrors, which are placed at right angles to one another. Looking into an ordinary mirror gives you your own image reversed, the right hand being where the left really is, and vice versa. How then is it that we have such an accurate and vivid picture of ourselves in the dream world, when we do not in waking life? There is such respectable evidence, it may be said, in favor of the idea that we actually inhabit a sort of semi-objective dream body in at least some dreams. I have explained this idea in the article on the occult theory of dreams. The following narrative is typical of this class of dreams. On the night of January 19th, I dreamt that I was lying in the garden before the windows of my study, and saw the eyes of my dog through the glass pane. I was lying on my chest and observing the dog very keenly. At the same time, however, I knew with perfect certainty that I was dreaming and lying on my back. In my bed, and then I resolved to wake up slowly and carefully and observe how my sensation of lying on my chest would change into the sensation of lying on my back. And I did so, slowly and deliberately, and the transition, which I have since undergone many times, is most wonderful. It is like the feeling of slipping from one body into another, and there is definitely a double recollection of the two bodies. I remember what I felt in my dream, lying on my chest, but returning into the daylight, into the day life, I remembered also that my physical body had been quietly lying on its back all the while. This observation of a double memory I have had many times since. It is so indubitable, I-N-D-U-B-I-T, indubitable. It is so indubitable, it leads almost unavoidably to the conception of a dream body. Cases such as these make one pause and wonder whether or not there may be a sort of body of sleep, after all, one which we inhabit at such times, at least on occasion. If so, it is a profoundly interesting thought. For might not this be the body which we inhabit after death, as taught by nearly all religions? Do dreams give us proof of the future? Next chapter. Dream people. When we are asleep and dreaming, we frequently meet people with whom we have long conversations. Indeed, there are cases on record in which the dreamer has had a debate with one of these dream personalities and has been worsted in the argument. Who are these dream people? Are they real, objective beings which exist before the dream began and who continue to exist after it's vanished? Or are they mere creations of our own subconscious imagination? And, if the latter, how does it come about that they answer us so unexpectedly, and often say and do things which seem to us at the time not only independent of ourselves, but even cleverer than the things which we could do or say? This is a very interesting question which has never been adequately answered. Many psychic and occult students believe that the personalities we meet in dreams are real beings like ourselves, thought forms, built up for the time being, but nevertheless real and objective while the dream lasts. There is some evidence to show that, in certain instances at least, some such theory as this may be correct. The ordinary psychological theory is that the active subconscious dream-like self somehow constructs by its imagination these various personages and endows them with life by a process of dramatic play peculiar to this dream-like subconsciousness. Thus we can, for example, close the eyes and imagine to ourselves any fictitious character, such as Mr. Pickwick, if we happen to be good at visualizing, as it is called. That is to say, the power of building up or constructing mental images by the power of the imagination. We can mentally see Mr. Pickwick and perhaps imagine that we ourselves are talking to him, and carry on a mental dialogue in this manner while yet awake. This same power of the mind is extremely active during the dream state, and it is doubtless true that the majority of our dream people are mere figments of the imagination, thus built up or constructed within ourselves. In certain instances, however, these dream people have told the dreamer certain things which afterwards turned out to be true, but which the dreamer himself did not know. We can only assume in such cases that the dream personage was actually there in some way, or that the subconscious mind of the dreamer had acquired these facts by some process of telepathy, and that this was displayed or brought to the surface in the dream itself. Here, then, is a problem upon which the reader may ponder, and upon which his own dream experiences may throw some light. Next chapter. Is life all a dream? The question has often been asked, is life all a dream? Shall we one day wake up into a world of reality and find that we have been dreaming, and that what seems to us so real here is, after all, a mere mental shadow? The Hindus believe this. They believe that this life is a dream, and that our dreams are also dreams. When we die, we wake up and find that we have been dreaming in both states. Plato also held some such view. He drew the analogy of men chained in a dark cave, with their faces fixed in one direction. Above their heads were real beings walking, who threw their shadows on the side of the cave, which its inhabitants faced. Perceiving only these shadows, they mistook them for realities, and thought that these were real human beings. The average common sense man, upon hearing such a view for the first time, would probably say, "Oh, well, I can pinch myself, thus I can show that I am really here." It hurts. But if you have attained a certain control over your dreams, and in your dream state you say, "Now, to prove that I am really here, and that this life is a fact, I'm going to pinch myself." In your dream you will find that you can pinch yourself, and that it hurts. So that this test is fulfilled. Every test that you can think of, as applied to the dream body, is the same as if applied to the physical body. So that is impossible, from this point of view, to distinguish between the two and establish reality. That being the case, the question arises, how do we know that this life is not all a dream? You will remember that in Alice in Wonderland, Alice encountered Tweedledee and Tweedledum in the forest. Together they saw the Red King asleep there. Tweedledum said, "What do you suppose he is dreaming about?" Alice replied, "How could I know that?" "Why," replied Tweedledee, "he is dreaming about you, of course." Alice said, "How do you know that?" Tweedledum replied, "Well, you are here." that above that you are being dreamed about. That shows that you are being dreamed about. You are just a thing in his dream. If he stopped dreaming about you, you would go out, just like a candle flame. Alice has no reply to this, and all she could say was, "I know they're talking nonsense." So, to the practical man, the idea that life is all a dream is just as much nonsense as that idea was to Alice. But he would have as great difficulty in disproving it as she did, because every test that he would apply to show that life was a reality could also be applied to show that the dreamer really existed while he was dreaming. So there is something to be said in favor of this view, after all. Final chapter, conclusion. We have now given a rapid summary of the main problems of the phenomena connected with dreams. The subject is so vast that it has been impossible to do much more than touch lightly upon its various aspects, almost any one of which might be expanded into a book in itself. An excellent little an excellent little booklet on psychoanalysis has, however, already been published in this series by William J. Fielding, number 190. And to this the reader is referred for a more extended treatment of this aspect of the dream problem. Those of my readers who may wish to follow any other peculiar branch of this fascinating subject at greater length are referred to the bibliography which follows. And then it gives a bibliography which follows. And that is the end of book number 417, The Nature of Dreams, written by Hereward Carrington, Ph.D.